Hey guys, Adam with the Truth Desk here, and we got a good one for you today. We've got the deleted George Zinn podcast episode called Stokes and Folks, Interview with George Zinn, Utah's most famous political celebrity. The podcast is from the Stokes and Folks podcast, done by a guy named Spencer Stokes. Spencer has been involved in Utah politics since the early 90s and has known George since that time. I actually was able to get in touch with Spencer after making several phone calls, and I did a 30-minute interview with him. I will throw that up for you right now if you want to listen to that. Spencer is one of George's closest friends, if not his closest friend. He's talked to George since he's been in jail. He's talked to George since all this has happened, and he offers a very unique perspective into George Zinn. We can kind of sometimes get lost in media hype and sensationalism, and it really helps to talk to somebody who knows George personally. He also told me that George did not tell the FBI or the police that he intentionally created a diversion to help the shooter escape. He says that George was just saying, hey, something big happened. George is a little mentally unstable, I guess. And he kind of went up to the cops and was like, hey, shoot me. He just felt really bad. George actually really liked Charlie Kirk. So very interesting interview of someone who knows George Zinn and has talked to him since he's been in jail. He also tells me that George did not willingly give his phone to the FBI. The official statement is the FBI asked for his phone and George gave it to him. Spencer tells me that George told him the police just took his phone, which I guess is their prerogative if you're arrested, but very, very interesting. If you are someone who has any sort of theories about George Zinn, I would definitely recommend listening to this podcast we're about to listen to and my interview with Spencer, I'll throw up there. I can't throw it up twice. I already threw it up once, but I will link it down below as well. So check those both out. Spencer also did talk about the after the Boston Marathon bombing, George Zinn allegedly called in a bomb threat to some sort of marathon that was happening in Utah. Spencer gave some perspective on that as well. He said George called and left a voicemail, and at the end he said, just kind of cheekily, offhandedly, hey, if you need any help hiding the bomb, let me know. Ha 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 ha. And that was kind of taken and misconstrued. I mean, you can't really say something like that after the big event like a Boston Marathon bombing. But it just goes to show the kind of humor, I guess, that George had. Just kind of an odd, quirky guy. Now, I did ask Spencer as well in my interview with him why he deleted this podcast episode he did with George Zinn. And he said, well, he left it up for a little bit, but once the child abuse image accusations against George came out, he decided to take it down under the advice of his family. And, that makes sense. He probably doesn't want to be associated with that. He's a guy that's involved in politics. He's worked on the campaigns of senators. He runs a lobbying firm. I mean, this guy's not just a nobody on the street, right? His image is important. So it makes total sense to me why he would take that podcast down. I did encourage him to, in that interview, if you watch it, I encouraged him to put it back up. And I told him that, this Charlie Kirk thing is the biggest political assassination in the United States in 50 or 60 years. I mean, since MLK or RFK, really. And I said, we still talk about those. And there's still documentaries made. There's still people that go back and look at the evidence. And this whole George Zinn spinoff of the Kirk assassination is going to be something that people will still be looking into 50 years from now, 100 years from now. And I said, it's like a piece of history, you should put it back up. And he did. So he's like, well, I might just do it, and I really hope he does, because again, I think it's archival. It's archival in nature. And, anyway, without further ado, let's get into Stokes and Folks, interview with George Zinn, Utah's most famous political celebrity.
Welcome to another edition of Stokes and Folks. We have a very special guest with us here today, but we've been on a little hiatus because the legislative session's been going on. We had a campaign going last year, but I have with me today probably one of the most known people to political people in the state of Utah, George Zinn. And, you know, I know tons of people, George, who know you always ask me questions about George Zinn. And so today's podcast is going to answer all those questions, and we're gonna dive into all of this. Now, I know a few facts about you. I know you were born in Weber County. Is that right?
No, that's absolutely not true. I was born in Athens, Greece.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was adopted when I was a year and a half, so I'm actually a naturalized citizen.
Okay, but you grew up in Weber County, right?
I grew up in all my life, except for when I moved to Salt Lake.
Okay, so how did you? When were you adopted?
November 1955. I came over from Athens. My mom actually went to New York and picked me up.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
So she adopted me from pictures. I was officially hers before she even touched me.
You've already blown my mind in the very first 2 minutes. I thought, because I knew that you went to high school with Marty Stevens, right?
Well, Marty's a good friend of mine, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about Marty, while we're on it, is that, he was... I don't know if Marty
former Speaker of the House.
If Marty hears this, he might kick my rear end. But no, Marty didn't show a lot of political kind of interest in high school that I know of. We didn't model UN, things like that. But he wasn't really aspiring or anything. He was more of kind of just the laid back kind of guy that I'd say kind of nerdy in a way. I mean,
okay, all right,
and he didn't really, and I thought, well, gee, Marty comes out, and then all of a sudden he shows all these political things that he does. He was mayor of Far West,
right?
Before and then I understand he had some positions at Weber State, things like that, and
he ran for the legislature.
Yeah, and he rose up as a little star in the legislature. Now he's the major attorney for the church or something.
Well, he's in the church public affairs department.
Real
which
big
we'll get to. We'll get to. But so what? So did you grow up in Far West then?
No, I grew up I grew up on the other side of Ogden High.
Okay. So north side of Ogden High? Just
on the other corner on Maryland Street. We were just a block away. My grandfather was actually the architect. Well, my adopted grandfather was the architect of Ogden High.
No kidding.
Leslie Hodgson.
No kidding. Well, he did a bunch of other buildings in Ogden, Utah as well.
He did. He was my mom's now, because that's what I say.
Right.
He was my mom's father, and. He did. He was credited with at least 50 buildings in Ogden,
and they're amazing buildings. The municipal building is one of his.
Building.
The Forest Service building is one of his.
Yeah, that's
right. I had no idea.
That Leslie Hodgson. Yeah, that was my mom's.
And so, did you know him?
I never met. He died in 1947.
Okay, so you never met him. But you're right across the street from his building.
That's right. Until we moved.
Okay, then where did you move to?
So we moved to the other side of town, and where Ben Lomond is up on Harrison. In fact, Harrison wasn't even Harrison back there. It was a street.
Okay.
It didn't become a boulevard until years later, and and they had to. A lot of people were upset. They had to lose their homes and everything to make way for that boulevard. But
so that's where you really grew up and spent your formidable years. Was there?
Yeah. Ben Lomond was my school. You bet. I'm a Scot all the way. Those kikers can take a hike.
All three of my daughters are Tigers, so I won't take offense. But they have the bagpipes. I mean, that's one of the coolest things to see happen is when Ben Lomond Scots come in with their bagpipes.
And we got a brand new school that's gorgeous. We built a whole new addition to it. I just had my 50th last year. It's interesting to go back because you don't know anybody. You're going, who are you?
Right.
Oh, I was the guy next door to you. What?
Yeah.
You don't look like him, No, but I saw my best friend, Scott Chambers. He was student body president. So and we were close.
Ben Lomond.
He was just around the corner from me.
Okay, so once you graduated, did you go on to college? What did you do next?
Well, I applied for the University of Utah. I took the GED. I didn't really have the best grades in high school. I didn't have the discipline. I was more just kind of but I had enough that I graduated, okay? And it got me through. And so, I decided, well, me and my mom, we went around looking for apartments in Salt Lake City. I said, I want to move. As soon as I get out, I want to try the big city and big city life. And I think I graduated on a Friday night in May, and that Saturday morning, I was in an apartment in Salt Lake City.
No kidding. So you've been looking for the apartment.
Imagine that. That's a very unique experience. He graduates high school Friday night, and Saturday morning, his mom has an apartment ready for him. He made a joke. He makes a joke later in this podcast about how his mom kicked him out after he graduated. So a very unique upbringing for George Zinn. Being adopted at a year and a half by they get into it a little bit later, a 50-year-old woman who has children that are much older, probably 18, 20 years older than George. So and a mom who had raised predominantly women, three or four sisters he had. So you're going from raising girls to now raising a boy. So just a very unique upbringing for George Zinn. I just want to bring that up.
Prior to graduation,
we had it all ready, just ready to go. As soon as I graduated, I was just ready to move in, and so I made the break, and I've been there for over 40 years now.
Here in Salt Lake.
In Salt Lake, 40 to 50 years. So. Yeah.
And but didn't go to college.
I did, yeah.
Okay,
I went to the I consider myself an alumni. I mean,
what did you?
You won't find any bigger Ute than me, other than Spence Eccles.
That's amazing. Well, I won't find a bigger fan of Utah either than you.
That's what I'm saying.
The state of Utah.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you major in? What was your major?
I started out in philosophy not philosophy, but psychology, I think, because it was interesting and I thought it was good. I did well in high school with it. Decided well, it was a little different in college, and so I got on into other things, and I think I went into journalism or something because I like to write.
How long did you do that?
I was in there
stay in college?
I was in there for a couple of years, and then it was a little bit too stressful for me, and I just, everybody wanted to plug all this information into my head, and I just...
That's a very interesting quote by George. I would love to talk to him and ask what he means by that, about everyone just wanting to plug all this information into my head. And he also, sometimes George will say, I think, you ask him biographical questions, and he says, I think this, I think that. It's almost... the impression I get is maybe he doesn't have the best grasp on his own history, which is, or maybe he's just done so many things in his life that by the time you're 70 years old and, you've done a couple thousand things, been to a couple thousand events and had several jobs, maybe it does all start to blur together. I don't know. But I would love to ask George about that and specifically what he means about people trying to plug ideas into his head.
College just wasn't for me, so I took in maybe 2 years and then decided, well,
okay,
I didn't want to.
What next? You grew up LDS, right?
Yeah. I was. My family was good.
Did you go on a mission?
Yeah, I went to Virginia. Mm-hmm.
Virginia.
Yeah.
What mission in Virginia?
Virginia Roanoke Mission at the time.
Really?
Yeah, my mission president was Rex Pinniger, and
no kidding,
for the first half, and then I had two presidents. I had President McPhee for the second, because I was on President Pinniger's last leg of the mission.
Okay.
And him and Sister Pinniger, and I had two magnificent mission presidents that you can't ask for anything better. President McPhee was a retired Army colonel.
Oh, really?
So he would run things like ship shape, you do your mission, But he was a loving man.
But Pinniger was, he had to have been a great mission president.
Yeah, it was just. I want to tell a story about one of the missionaries told us his conversion story. I think I might tell you this.
Yeah,
is that okay?
Yeah.
And he was kind of living his heydays. He had the kind of long hair before he got involved in the church. And he says, I was taking a motorcycle ride, and I was going through Manti, and they had some kind of a little show going on there.
And this is he's not a member. He's just on a motorcycle trip through Utah.
He says, I'm going to take a layover and go into Manti. He says, I understand you have some little church show going on up there. And he says, I went to it, and he got there early, and he said he sat next to a gentleman, and they started discussing things about the church, And he says, that's quite interesting. And then the gentleman says, well, would you like to talk to a couple of our young men? and they can tell you a little more. And he got interested. He took the lessons. He got baptized and got his life in order to, to join the church, and was on our mission with us. And then he says, I never heard from that man again until I turned on your general conference. And then he says, Von Featherstone was up there talking. That's the man I was talking to.
No kidding.
Yeah, he said, I was sitting next to one of your general authorities and didn't know it. And I go, that's a great story.
And Von J. Featherstone, he was a rock star.
He was, and he loved to discuss the gospel. You could not shut the guy up.
Right.
You know?
He
probably discussed it in his sleep, and his wife probably says, "Shut up,"
He was friends with my father, and you couldn't stop him from talking about. But he gave great conference talks. He was so relatable. Anyhow, that missionary was sitting next to Von Featherstone, and he opened his mouth and told him, "Would you like to talk to two of our young boys?"
Yeah.
So he was a missionary out in the Roanoke, Virginia mission.
We were Roanoke, Virginia back then, but it's turned into Richmond. And in fact, they're having their open house of their temple.
Their temple right
this
now.
week.
Are you going?
Oh no.
Well,
I would like to. What an excuse!
It's highly unusual that you're not going to be at one of those, because I've got plenty of George Zinn spottings across the country. So
John Curtis just took a group through yesterday.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
through the temple in Virginia.
Congressman Curtis did.
Yeah, amazing. What did So you come back from your mission, and you'd basically at that point decided you weren't going to continue the university. Or was it after that?
Well, I don't know. That's going back a ways. I was in the symphony corps.
See what I mean by he's a little unsure about his own biographical history. He says, I don't know, that's going back a ways. Again, the guy's old. He'd done a lot of things in his life, but interesting to me that biographical information like that he tends to have trouble with.
Chorus, and I had a lot of irons in the fire back then. The Mormon Youth Symphony and Chorus, and I was in there like 2 years before my mission.
A guy by the name of Scott Earl said that he sang in that with you.
Yeah.
So I told him I was doing this interview, and he said, "Oh, I know George. I sang in the choir with him."
Yeah, Mormon Youth. Yeah.
Yeah.
We could say Mormon back then.
So it was the Mormon Youth Symphony.
Mormon Youth Symphony and Chorus, and then. They held a seat for me, so when I came home, I could just go ahead and continue.
So somebody told me the story that you used to go into the tap. You want water?
I got this.
Okay,
go ahead.
Somebody told me that they would you'd come to Temple Square, and you'd go up into the balcony and go around and sing with the choir. Is that a true story? The Tabernacle Choir?
I haven't heard that.
You haven't heard, Well, if you haven't heard it, then it's not true.
No. There's a lot of stories about me that aren't true.
Well, that's what today's all about. We're only getting the...
There certainly is, George.
The true ones. We're only getting the true ones. So they held a spot for you. You came back. You started singing in it again.
Right.
And then when did you didn't go back to school?
I think I continued a couple of years or something like that, but I just... didn't it wasn't really my thing. I mean,
okay. Then what did you do to make a living?
Well, I worked at Snell Grove Ice Cream for 6 years.
Really? The one on South Temple when it was there?
No, I worked in the factory on 2100. That's how I got to know all the Snell Grove family, because they became second family to me almost. I mean.
Oh, so you were at the plant?
I was at the plant on 21.
And what did you do?
I was in the production area.
Okay.
Working with the ice cream.
So you were making the ice cream.
I didn't make the ice cream, but I helped on the production line.
Okay.
It was all made manually back then. We didn't have machines. We had our filler that would fill it and then pass it on. I would take it into the freezer and then come back. It was it was repetitious, but it paid good.
Okay. All right. And then you were you dating? Did you date? I want to know about your dating career, George.
Girls took a second seat to me. I had a lot of girls and I had a lot of crushes and things, but to me, they just got a little bit, I failed too many times, and I think I got discouraged because I had some super crushes. During my mission, I had one, I won't mention any names, but I liked her a lot. She was in the group, and I was basically obsessed with her. And it was kind of a one-way thing. I mean, she would.
This is a sister missionary.
No. This is one of the women in the symphony and chorus.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Before my mission.
Okay.
And yeah, I liked her a lot, and it became almost like stalking in a way. She didn't want to. She just kind of gave me a signal that it just wasn't going to happen.
Another.
Just want to point this out here. This just kind of shows how George is just a little bit different from everybody else. Again, different upbringing, like we've talked about, and then romantic and love life. A little bit different of a guy. Spencer talked about in the when I called him and interviewed him, he said that there were some people that were. He used the word afraid of George, people in Utah politics, these straight-laced politician types, where George was always trying to hang out around politicians, trying to be around politicians. There were some that didn't treat him very kindly and didn't like him being around. Spencer, as you can see here, Spencer's a nice, friendly guy. I got a very friendly vibe from him in the conversation where I talked to him, and he's just a very accepting guy. And I believe Spencer's LDS, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or otherwise known as Mormon. For those of you that don't know, Mormonism is very popular out in Utah. George Zinn is definitely a Mormon. In the arrest of him, we can see when his pants fall down, he's wearing those long shorts. Those are called temple garments. All members, I don't know about all, but a decent amount of LDS members wear them. They're like a white shirt and a white pair of shorts that go on underneath your clothes. So I believe that's a connection that Spencer has too with George. He talks about in the interview that he likes George because he's a believer. And so I think he values George's faith, and they have that connection together. It was incorrectly identified. I don't know if it still is, but when this Kirk thing first happened, it was reported that George Zinn was a Ashkenazi Jew. That's incorrect. He's a Mormon. He's a Greek Mormon. So just want to point that out.
Massive question. So you've never been married?
Yeah, I have been married.
Oh, you have been married?
Yeah, it was the greatest 2 weeks of my life.
Tell me about that. When did you meet? Where did you meet her?
Well, I was working at the Desert Industries, and Joanne, she just recently passed away, by the way, last year.
Okay.
And
so we can mention her name, Joanne. Okay.
Joanne Edwards. She was a good girl, and she's just a little bit older than me, but I got a fancy to her, and we started seeing each other a lot and things like that. And she'd just gotten out of 2 marriages. And I goes, well, 3 strikes and you're out. It's kind of a bad sign, in my opinion. But
you did get married.
Yeah, I got married. We didn't get married in the temple because I wasn't ready for it. But we did get married quickly by a bishop. What happened was I had lost my apartment, and she came home from work. She worked for the IRS in Ogden.
Okay.
And here I am with all my belongings and everything in her living room. She says, George, what are you doing here? I says, well, I lost my apartment. I need to have a place for a while. She's kind of this straight-laced kind of Mormon girl that doesn't believe that a man and a woman
should be living together
unless
they're married.
Yeah. And she says, well, I don't think you ought to be here unless, you find a place to live or we get married. And I says, Joanne, I like the second choice better, But anyway, so I says, well, Joanne, I think I like the second choice better. And she, well, okay. And we called the bishop. I think we were married within a week or so.
Again, very unusual, odd kind of a story for George. I mean, how many people do this? How many people get married to somebody because they, need a... I'm sure they were friends, these two. George says he works at Desert Industries. That is a thrift store, several thrift stores around the Salt Lake area, kind of like Goodwill. Except these thrift stores are run by the LDS Church, the Mormons. So George worked there, knew a lot of people. He's in this world as well. Spencer describes George, too, as always being like one step away from homelessness. When he would go travel to these political events, which they will get into later in the podcast, Spencer says that George would stay at hostels, would eat at soup kitchens, would just kind of do it kind of like a grifter would, like a hobo almost. Just do everything on an extreme budget. So he was kind of involved in that world, and that's probably why he got the job at Desert Industries, honestly, because it's a thrift store and he was probably hanging out there a lot. So just want to point that out.
Got married real quick in the church building, and there's like 20 of our friends.
Okay, and you stayed. I mean,
Our honeymoon was dinner at Village Inn or something. I don't know.
yeah, but you only stayed married to her for 2 weeks.
No.
Okay,
no, come on, man.
I get it. It was the best 2 weeks of your life.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. No, it was a legal marriage for like at least 7 years, but yeah. So we gave it a shot.
No kids.
Yeah, no, she was, like I say, 3 strikes, and
Okay.
it was kind of a bad sign, I think. But
A red flag, if you will.
that's why, that's what I'm saying.
But
yeah.
no kids.
No, there was no kids at all in her life.
Okay.
So she had cats. One
All
thing, she
right.
lived in a trailer house in West Haven. You know where West Haven
Oh,
is?
sure I do. Yeah.
And,
You were this really northern Utah centric, George.
Well, yeah, I've been here and there and everywhere. What's that song? I've been everywhere,
yeah.
man.
So
know?
you then what? So now we know you worked at Snell Groves.
Right.
You've worked at the Deseret Industries.
Yeah.
Was that Salt Lake Deseret Industries or?
yeah,
Okay.
that was I think no, it was Ogden where I met her.
Ogden. Okay.
Ogden, yeah.
All right. And then what other jobs have you had along the way?
Oh, gee, you got a phone book?
Yeah, let's go through them. Everybody wants to know
Do you want
George
to
Zinn.
start with A and work down?
Yeah. Can you do it that way?
No, I've had a lot of jobs. I worked at Yellowstone for a summer, which was fun.
Okay.
Had a good experience there. Didn't like the job, but I loved
The outdoors.
the job. I mean, I loved the park and living there. Yeah.
And for a summer you did that. What else?
I'll tell you one. I worked at Maxfield Candy Company.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sugar has been a big part of your career.
Yeah, that's why I'm so up the ceiling all the time, you know?
So how long did you work at Maxfield? That was another local. They're not still. Are they still in existence?
No, the whole Maxfield family is just, I think they sold that. They were right off of 10th South and about 3rd West, where the tracks goes.
Okay.
I think you know where it is.
Yeah.
And,
but they don't. I don't think they're still in business.
No, it's all boarded up now. But
Is this a signature thing of your, George? Every place you've been now is out of business. Of course,
No.
Snell Grove still exists.
Well,
right?
Snell Groves is an interesting story. I mean, Dryers bought them out, and they says, well, we'll keep the Snell Grove product for a while, but they were real interested. They were owned by Nestle's.
Okay, and they phased
Dryers,
it out.
Dryers was just one of their products, and every time they had to switch to a Snell Grove product, they had to, clean out all the tanks, not leave any residual, anything like that. The
new recipe.
and change to a new recipe so there wouldn't be Dryer's trace in a Snell Grove. And they just says, well, it just wasn't profitable enough for them, so they says, well, we're just going to have to phase out the Snell Grove. And then it just disappeared.
But they've left the scoop sign up there, the big cone, right?
Yeah,
Up
well,
in
the city's got an ordinance on that. They
Sugar
own
House.
the cone. They own the cone, by the way.
Oh,
They
the
bought
city
it.
does?
They bought it out. It doesn't belong to the family. It belong to anybody anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, the city just says, well, on condition that you put those apartment buildings up there, you keep the cone.
Interesting.
So, because it's kind of an icon.
Yeah, no question. Just like the one on 4th South is.
Well,
The double scoop ice cream there that's painted black.
That's interesting because Jimmy John's didn't know how to take it down, so they just painted it black. I says, "Where's the licorice ice cream in this place?" But
so, what other kinds of jobs?
well, I was going to mention. What was I going to mention about Richard Snellgrove had told me that they just Dryers just wanted to assume the product. And I know what Richard told me. He says, no, it's an icon. He says they're not allowed to take that cone down as long as they,
Interesting.
yeah. So
Richard's a former Salt Lake County
County
councilman.
councilman.
Ran for Congress.
yeah,
Do you remember what
Well,
his signs look like?
I remember
remember?
him running for Congress against Wayne Owens.
Yeah, and his signs looked like they had a bunch of different colored circles on them. Made you think of ice cream.
yeah.
Every time I drove by, I thought, I don't know what kind of congressman he is, but I feel the urge to have some ice cream.
Well, that's his trademark. Of course, when you think of Snellgrove, you think of the ice cream.
Right.
And it's just like anything else. You think of Kentucky Fried Chicken. You think you can. Anyway, it's just
Colonel
it's a
Sanders.
brand. It's a brand.
Yeah.
And so Richard uses it to his benefit, although he has nothing to do with it. He did open another little outlet out in St. George. You'll like my plug.
Yeah.
With his daughter.
Have you been down there to it?
I have, yeah. It's the same recipe. It's the same product. So,
So
uh-huh.
George, you've had a bunch of different jobs.
Right.
Any others that come to mind you want to give a plug to that you loved?
I was going to mention with Maxfield's, it was a seasonal job.
Okay.
And so I think I started around August, and then around January or so, we'd be laid off, and I'd have to look for something new, because our big push was during season.
Sure.
We were actually doing Valentine's candy in November, because we did we'd have the Christmas run all done by October.
Okay.
And my job was I was called a rover, and I was just passing the boxes of candies on to. Do you remember the Lucille Ball episode where she was shoving
candies in her mouth?
That was exactly what the Maxfield Candy operation was. I mean, they just took candies and they just put them in the different locations.
So when was it you decided you were going to become the person who went to everything? How long have you been doing? Because I've been involved in politics at the state level since 1992.
Yeah.
Well,
I think my first national convention, and by the way, I'll let you know I've never been a national delegate. I'd keep trying.
Right. But you've been
but I'd go
to
anyway.
Every national convention.
I've been to.
George actually was a alternate national delegate for the last Republican National Convention, Spencer told me. So this interview was from 2023, 2024. I can't remember exactly, but George Zinn actually did become a national delegate. Now, they're going to get into him going to all these political events here. And when I first listened to this podcast, my biggest question was, and I told this to Spencer, I said, look, I can go as a private citizen, and I can go to these events. I can go see congressmen speak. I can see presidents speak. I can see governors speak. But that doesn't mean I'm going to go get to talk to them. That doesn't mean that everybody that's involved in politics is going to know me. And what Spencer told me is, first of all, Utah's a small state. Okay, they've got 4 representatives in Congress, in the House of Representatives. And so it's the political community is smaller. There's less people that go to these political events in Utah. George Zinn was consistent. He would go there all the time, every year after year after year, going to these things. And George would always try to get as close as he could to the main person. He would try to talk his way into secure areas. He would try to just meet people and talk to them. So, and as you can see from this interview, he's just kind of a quirky guy, kind of an interesting, just likes to talk, likes to jibber jabber. And so people got to know him, and that's how he got to know all of these political figures in Utah. So very interesting. That was my question was, how does this guy know everybody? Just because you go somewhere doesn't mean you'll know them. But Spencer provided a little bit of context for me there.
At least 10.
Right. And you've been, what was your first national convention?
I think it was Houston.
Yeah, George.
That would
have
been George Bush, or
second term.
Or one of them was Ronald Reagan. I think Ronald Reagan's was Dallas, if I remember.
Yeah. And you've been to Democrat ones as well, right?
That's interesting, because when we had our Minnesota National Convention, the Democratic Convention was a week after ours. And so it's just a natural stopover for me on the way home. Instead of just taking a direct flight, I say, okay, I'm going to stay another week and do the Democrats.
Was that the Obama one?
It was Obama.
So Colorado?
Yeah, Denver, Colorado, and he held his big meeting at Mile High, where he was nominated. Yeah.
But when was it you just decided, I'm going to start going to everything? Was it?
I don't know, when my mom kicked me out of the house and wouldn't let me in,
So mom.
No, that's a joke. You got to know that be careful of me.
So did, and what year did your mother pass away?
Oh, she just passed away in 1997. Yeah.
Okay.
And my dad passed away when I was 12, so she lived 30 years without
really?
my dad. Wonderful man. He worked for the railroad at Union Pacific.
What did your mom do for a living?
She really, I didn't know too much about her before I came in the family, but I knew she had some jobs, but she just was basically a mom.
Okay.
I mean, she just loved her kids and her grandchildren, and everything was about her family.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I had 4 sisters.
4 sisters.
4 sisters. That's the reason I came in, is because my mom
wanted a little
son.
boy.
She wanted a boy. I don't know if she regretted it now, but
I'll bet you were a great son.
I would really like to get to talk to George and talk to him about his relationship with his mom, because he makes some interesting comments here. He doesn't talk about her negatively, but I get the feeling that there's something there. She was probably a unique woman. It takes a unique woman to adopt a baby sight unseen from halfway around the world when you're in your late 50s. After raising 4 girls. So I'm sure she was a unique woman. I'm sure he had a very unique upbringing, and I would like to know more about that, and it might let us know a little bit more about George Zinn himself.
To your mom.
Yeah, we had our differences, but Phyllis was the last one because I came in late in the family. Phyllis was the last one in the family, and she didn't stay very long. She eventually got married and left me and my mom basically, and my dad. When I was 12 years old, he passed away when he was 62. So
Okay.
that's a little young, you know.
Yeah. And how old were you when he passed away?
About 12 or 13.
And your 4 older sisters had all moved out of the house at
They
that
were
point.
yeah, they were gone. Except, like I say, Phyllis was one of the last, and then she wasn't there very long.
Are they all still alive?
No, they're gone.
All 4 of your sisters are
I'm
gone.
really the last one in my immediate family.
And all their
Yeah.
last name, I mean, Zinns.
Well, yeah, I mean they were Zinns
Before they got married.
Yeah, so
So are any of their husbands still alive?
everybody's just.
Everybody's
I'm
gone?
outliving everybody. I'm.
How long ago did your last sibling pass away?
You ought to name me Methuselah or something. It was been about 10 years, something like that. That Phyllis was the last one, and then her husband, my brother-in-law, has
Passed away.
Quickly went after that. So.
How old was she when she passed away?
She'd have been in her 80s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you were quite a bit younger when they adopted you.
My mom was almost 50 when I came, which means a whole generation.
Sure.
And it's like being raised by your grandma almost, because
Yeah.
my mom was all the time was saying, "George, you want to knit?" And I said, "No, I want to play football. You're not raising a girl."
You didn't want to knit.
I didn't want a girl, but she thought he was raising another daughter. I said, "Mom, you're raising a son this time, you know."
So 10 okay, so there's a couple of other areas I want to delve into here. I have gotten a call. I got a call once from Mac Christensen.
Yeah.
You knew Mac.
Yeah, I know Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mac it was when the choir was on tour. He was the president of the Tabernacle Choir. And I could hear over his phone in the background the Battle Hymn of the Republic being sung by the Tabernacle Choir.
Yeah.
And he said, "Stokes, you're never going to believe this. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
The Tabernacle Choir is singing. I'm looking out into the audience, and guess who I'm looking at?" I said, "I haven't a clue. George Zinn."
Yeah.
Imagine that. Atlanta is, I don't know, probably 3,000 miles away from Salt Lake City. This guy traveled 3,000 miles to see the Tabernacle, traveled by himself 3,000 miles to see the Tabernacle Choir, some sort of Salt Lake City based musical group in Atlanta, Georgia. I mean, that just tells you what kind of person George is.
So were you there?
I was probably there.
Yeah.
I don't remember everything.
But
although, yeah, I was probably there. I think I went on a couple of tours.
you were
I tagged along with them. Yeah.
So you followed them along everywhere they went.
Well, I went to one in Philadelphia that was cool because they always have guest conductors when they traveled.
Sure.
And they put Andy Reid on the coach of the Chiefs, and he was coach of the Eagles at the time. And here's Andy Reid, and he went up there and conducted the choir in the battle hymn.
No kidding.
That was kind of fun. I got to see the choir there.
So, another George Zinn story.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant gets charged in Colorado.
Oh.
I'm reading ESPN online.
Yeah.
And here's a quote by George Zinn of Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you make it into the trial?
I did. I went into a couple of them. I was just I had a Greyhound layover, and we went through Eagle, Colorado.
Where were you coming from?
It was Eagle, Colorado. And I think I was coming from a Broncos game or something. I was doing something in Denver, because I'm all the time in Denver because anyway.
Because why? Why are you all the time in Denver?
Well, I'm a Broncos fan.
Okay. So if there was a frequent flyer
I wonder if there was something else he was doing in Denver. That exchange seemed kind of interesting. He's like, well, I'm all the time in Denver because, I don't know. I wonder if there's some other reason that he goes to Denver. Just speculating.
program for Greyhound, you've got to be silver Greyhound or diamond Greyhound.
Well,
because you take it a lot, right? That's
if I would take the cheapest and the most efficient transportation I could, even if it was just a bus. I think I took one of them all the way to New York City, and it took like 3 days, and it was
that to the convention?
It was heck on my rear end. I think it was the convention, yeah.
When they had it in New York shortly after 9/11.
But I couldn't. It's interesting. I usually could get into most of the. I could talk one of the delegates into a credential, and
he's talking about talking political delegates into getting a credential to get into these Republican national conventions. It's a very, very interesting. Again, the way Spencer made it out to be is that George has just been around so much and just chatty guy and is able to charm people, but that's uncommon. Most people can't do that. Just talk to delegates and get a credential. That's interesting.
And they'd let me in.
You've been on the floor of more conventions than most Republicans will in their lifetime.
Well, Lee Lonsberry was real good to me because he gave me one of the best seats for Tampa.
Okay.
And it was the last night when the nominee speaks, right? And so it's the most attended. It's the most attended session.
Right.
And Lee gives me his. He says I can't go to it. Here's my credential. I was sitting 5 rows above the Utah delegation. And I thought, I think this is great. I couldn't vote, but
you were there.
But I was right there, and I almost felt like I was a part of them, but I couldn't go down and vote. I couldn't go down on the floor because it was a vote night or something.
That was Romney, right?
It was a Romney thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The year that Romney got the nomination.
No, it was Trump.
Oh, it was the year Trump?
It was Trump.
I thought Trump was Cincinnati.
Romney was Tampa.
Okay. Well, that's where you said you were, Tampa.
Tampa,
yeah. And Romney was Tampa.
Romney was Tampa. And so, I that was a nice thing for me to get right up there close.
He's a little unsure of his dates and stuff. Just a little unsure. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I appreciated Lee for doing that,
Okay, so I want to can we keep going?
I don't care. Yeah.
Where are you going after this? So I can keep talking about stuff? Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Christmas is coming pretty soon, so, we...
Because you've got to have a phone full of selfies.
Oh, yeah.
Who's the most famous person you've got on your...
Now that's a interesting question.
Okay,
I got a lot of interesting people.
Okay,
I got everybody from Robert Redford to. I'll tell you one interesting story that reminds me of. Dan Quayle was making a local visit. I think it was in Logan.
I think he was in Farmington. Was this when he was vice president?
He was vice president.
I think it was Farmington.
Was it Farmington?
Yeah.
But I had to go to do my thing in the men's room.
Yeah. Okay.
And I thought, and I go in, and there's Dan Quayle in the urinal next to me. I go, holy smokes, here's the vice president. And I thought, well, why wouldn't Secret Service block that thing? I thought, wouldn't that be interesting that they let people walk right in? And what do you say to the vice president when you have 2 minutes next to the vice president?
At the urinal.
At a urinal.
And what did you say?
I go, so I says, well, have you gone skiing lately, Mr. Vice President? Have you gone skiing in Utah lately? Yeah, it was a generic question.
Right.
I didn't want to turn it political.
And what did he say?
He said, yeah, I like skiing. I went up there. I think he said something, but I just thought of some stupid question so I wasn't embarrassed,
Maybe in my personal opinion, even if I saw someone famous at a urinal, I'd probably just not say anything. I am not one. I do not try to make small talk at the urinal when my dick is in my hand and another man has his dick in his hand. But that's just me. Whatever.
But I thought that was my 2-minute hit of fame.
We have something in common. I too have stood in a urinal next to Dan Quayle.
Was
he wasn't vice president. He wasn't vice president at the time.
Yeah.
And he was at the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
You know, the musical Jersey Boys of the Four Seasons down in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
We were sitting directly behind him.
Yeah.
Not a soul in the theater knew that it was Dan Quell sitting there.
Well, who cares?
And I decided, well, you know, if he leaves at intermission, I'm leaving at intermission too. He got up and left, went to the restroom, and I stalked him and went right into the restroom and stood right next. Well, I mean, you know, I stood in my own separate urinal stall, and I was probably not as cool as you.
Yeah,
but there we go. We have something in common.
Well, mine was just a chance meeting. I was totally surprised.
Who else? Who else you got on your selfie on your phone?
Okay,
every governor. I mean, you've known every governor.
Well, probably since I've been alive. I didn't know.
You knew
Fry.
Bangeter.
I didn't know Fry,
but you knew Bangeter,
or all the other ones. I didn't.
You knew Bangeter.
Well, yeah, an interesting story. I was telling your daughter up there about when Norm Bangeter went on his mission. Him and Colleen went to South Africa, Johannesburg, and you're not too far from the governor's mansion, and so I go out to the governor's mansion, and I'm kind of gutsy, and he knows who I am,
sure,
and I hit the intercom, and the governor answers, and I think, that's quite interesting. Norm's answering his own intercom.
Yeah,
I says, Governor, this is George, and he knows,
Yeah.
And I says, who's going to take care of your horse? He had beautiful horses in South Jordan.
Yes.
2 or 3 of them. I said, who's going to take care of your horses when you're on your mission? I'd like to take care of your horses, Governor. You have anybody? I'd go up there and feed them. You don't even have to pay me. I just want to take care of your horses. Yeah, we have family. I can take care of them, But I thought, at least
so
I
he answered
asked.
his own intercom. Yeah, Norm Bangeter had one security, one highway patrolman.
Yeah,
that was it. His name was Andy.
I know Andy.
And you always knew if the governor was at an event because Andy was outside smoking.
No,
That's
Andy was
knew.
not the same one then, because the one I knew was LDS.
Oh, was he? Yeah. Well, maybe after Norm he took up smoking. Who knows?
I don't know.
So did then? So you knew Norm.
Imagine that. I mean, the guy goes to the governor's mansion. The governor of Utah rings the doorbell, and the governor of Utah answers and knew George. That's a pretty crazy story. I'm willing to bet if I went to my state governor mansion and tried to ring the doorbell, I'm going to just take a wild guess and say that my state's governor would not answer the doorbell. The intercom. Just a guess.
Yeah.
Did you know Levitt?
Oh, of course I knew Mike. Yeah. Mike was good. Yeah.
Do you have pictures with he and?
I probably do if I go back far enough.
Yeah. Okay. Then after Mike, did you know Olene?
Huntsman.
Oh, how about Olene? Let's not skip Olene.
Olene was interesting. I was one of the last to sit by her in the state convention when she lost her nomination, and it was just really sad because she felt cheated. I remember she went on that third balloting, and her and Myron were just. She was taking it very hard.
She got in too late. She didn't tell anybody she was going to run until it was too late.
Yeah, well, I thought the balloting system on that was just garbage.
So of course you've been to every state convention. There's no question about that.
I might not have been to everything. I think I missed an event in 1976. I don't remember.
Okay. How about so after Olene, then it was Huntsman.
Huntsman and
did you know Huntsman?
Yeah, I knew him through his family. Yeah, John was okay, although he was a little bit standoffish with me because he kind of knew I didn't like his politics too much.
So you're super conservative, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and I just didn't think Huntsman was in the same ballpark as me. So,
how about you? Then after Huntsman, Herbert, I know you knew. Herbert.
Gary's wonderful. Yeah, he says I'm one of the 3, but I say, that's just
speculation.
You're just putting me, in this position that makes me uncomfortable.
Well,
I told him to stop.
When he says one of the 3, he's talking about one of the 3 Nephites.
Well,
because you're everywhere.
For people that don't understand that 1 and 3, that's what he was referring to. It's kind of a LDS little kind of thing that's
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's people that call you one of the three Nephites. One person I've heard calls you the Forrest Gump of Utah politics because you're everywhere.
Yeah, but
You're in every picture.
I didn't show LBJ my rear end.
You didn't do that. That's
No.
true.
I didn't get shot in the buttocks.
Yeah. Where do you live now?
Right up across from the university.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you probably go to lots of University of Utah things.
Some stuff, but there's not so much. What I go to mostly is the Hinckley Institute. I've gone up there for years. I've the public forums and things.
Right.
J.D. Williams was my mentor. I just really loved J.D. He was the first one that kind of set my feet on fire for the politics because he was just a great lecturer.
So how many of the Hinckley directors have you known? Have you known all
I've
of them?
known them all. Yeah.
So from J.D. Williams
To Ted.
to Jowers. Did you know Jowers?
Well, there Ted, and there was I knew.
Well, there was Dan Jones.
Dan Jones was not a director.
Oh, wasn't he?
No, he wasn't a director. He taught classes up there.
Okay.
But R.J. Snow.
That's right, R.J.
Snow, who was sadly killed in a car crash, in Provo, and that's interesting because he became vice president at BYU, and I talked to R.J. I says, "What color socks do you actually wear?" So he was a nice man. They just named a new president of BYU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you down there for the talk?
No, I heard about it on the news.
Okay.
Probably will be for the inauguration.
Okay.
When it comes up, yeah.
So, but then there was Ted Wilson.
Ted Wilson was wonderful, yeah.
So how
Good
far
man.
back on U.S. senators did you know? I know you knew Bob Bennett.
Okay, I'll tell you the first politician I actually glommed onto was when I was, I would think I was at Mr. Mac or something in my mission. Before my mission, my mom we were buying my mission suit.
Okay.
For my mission, it was a Mr. Mac's. And Gun McKay was there.
Oh, yeah, from up in Huntsville. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was the first time I'd actually hobnobbed with a real politician. I was kind of starry-eyed. I was 18, and here was
well, and you're from Weber County. He was from Weber County.
He was from Weber County. He was a nice man, Democrat, but I loved him. I thought he was a great man, and I was kind of in awe of seeing Gun McKay. I think he was the real first politician that I'd actually, seen for real. I mean that, and then from then on.
So he's probably the first one, and then, but like senators, Orrin, obviously you knew Orrin, Senator Hatch.
Well, of course, I've been deployed to a lot of campaigns.
Sure.
I was deployed to Minnesota for the Norm Coleman campaign.
Okay.
I just did a deployment last year in New York. No, I met Senator Smallor.
So I didn't understand what he meant when he said I've been deployed to these campaigns. When I interviewed Spencer Stokes, the guy that's interviewing George Zinn, I asked him about that. I said, what does George mean when he said I was deployed? And what he says is that the Utah Republican Party would take folks like George, Republicans in the state, politically active that had, maybe some free time on their hands, and send them to other states to help those states' Republican parties get volunteers for their Republican campaigns. So that's what George means by being deployed. He was just going to other states and helping get volunteers and with other Republican campaigns. So I've seen some stuff online like, George is this and he was deployed, and what's that mean, deployed? And it's like, okay, well, makes sense.
Met,
and you were out there knocking on doors.
John McCain and whoever,
How about have you met a president?
Yeah.
Which one?
I was. I'll tell you an interesting story about that. Okay, I would, if I can remember. Okay, I was coming from New York. I think it was. No, I was coming from Washington D.C. I was up there for Memorial Day weekend because I went to the Memorial Day weekend at Washington D.C. And I was on my way home, and I did a quick trip to New York because I wanted to see New York on my way home. It's only 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
And as I'm walking around Broadway, I see, how these big old signs up there, and I looked up on the marquee, Ronald Reagan just passed away.
Wow.
And I looked up there and I says, I don't think I'm going home. I think I'm turning around and going back to Washington. It was all coincidence. Because then I said, well, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go back. And then I went back and I walked through the Capitol building and saw the
laying in state.
The laying in state, where if I'd have been in Utah, I probably wouldn't have bothered.
No, right.
But it was totally coincidental that I happened to be in New York and saw that.
So you walked through the Capitol, paid your respects to Ronald Reagan when he was laying in state.
Yeah, and me and another guy who I didn't know actually, but we became friends in New York or in Washington when we were up there. They had the services in the National Cathedral, and they had everything roped off for security reasons. You could only get so far because of everybody walking through that were VIPs and political people. And me and him were on the inside perimeter of the Secret Service, and they didn't know. We were close to the cathedral. And I told him, I says, we better keep our trap shut. They're going to bounce our little rear ends out of here.
Right.
George has a lot of his convictions, a lot of his legal trouble involves trespassing. Again, from what Spencer told me on that call, George just always tried to get close to the action. He wanted to, he said too that George can't see well. And that's why George likes to get up close to the action. It could also be a psychological thing. You're at a big event. There's the important person. You want to go talk to him. You want to be in the thick of the action as well. But most of George's legal troubles, besides the Boston, the Utah Marathon bomb threat that he, allegedly called in or just made a joke. Really, we talked about that earlier. Come from him. Just going places that he shouldn't, going to these events, and probably a lot of politicians, clean cut, 3-piece suit kind of guys, and then here's George Zinn wearing a button-up shirt with the 70s style, with the top 3 buttons. That's very 70s. It's kind of George having grown up in that era. That's why he rocks the open chest look there. But yeah, he just looks kind of disheveled, and people, who's that guy? Let's get him out of here. That's most of his convictions come from that.
We were sitting next to the cathedral the whole time, and when they came out, I bumped into Henry Kissinger.
No kidding.
I says, I bumped into Al Gore. I said, wow, I'm like a kid in a candy store. Here I am bumping into all these guys. And I said, if Secret Service knew, they'd have a fit. But me and him managed to get on the inside perimeter. It was really funny.
So but you didn't answer who. I mean,
I don't answer questions. I just lollygag around.
Well, so what? What president did you meet? I mean,
I met
Ronald Reagan was dead.
No, I met Reagan when he came to Hooper.
Oh, did you? You were out there.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And what was that? 1980?
He was running for re-election, and
84 then.
I think so. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I remember Orrin Hatch getting all this criticism because he was hobnobbing on Air Force One. And they says, well, you shouldn't be on Air Force One if you're on a campaign.
Okay.
If you're campaigning.
Right.
He doesn't know, but...
So Reagan, you met him in Hooper.
I met him in Hooper. We had sack lunches that day. It was fun. Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, now...
I think the reason they put it in Hooper is because they said the Secret Service could fly over the cornfields and they'd be able to see anything that they thought was a little bit maybe problematic,
Right.
So...
Right. Or maybe he was just really fond of tomatoes because they have tomato days there.
Well, and they took him to Desert Industries down there and led him toward the DIs there.
So you've probably...
I should have asked Spencer about that. I can't really hear what he says. They took Ronald Reagan down to Desert Industries. So Hooper's a town in Utah. It's right by Salt Lake City. Reagan did a campaign event there. That's where, Mr. Zinn met him. And then they take Ronald Reagan to Desert Industries, which is a thrift shop, a thrift store, to tour the de-ice. That's what he said. I think that's what he said. Tour the de-ice. I don't know what that means. I know that there is a lot of de-icing industries there around Salt Lake City. It's a drying lake that's very salty. So there's salt mines. There's salt mines in Wendover. There's salt mines in Rowley. They mine the salt out of the ground, and they mine like calcium chloride and things like that. So there is a de-icing industry around Salt Lake City, but I don't know what Desert Industries, the thrift shop, has to do with that. I remember listened to that section of the podcast over and over again, and I should have asked Spencer about it, and I forgot. I really dropped the ball on that one, so my bad, guys.
Been to about every festival in Utah.
Well, I've been to Sundance for a lot, probably 20 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've done the Sundance thing.
And you go see shows there?
Yeah,
or you just hang out?
No, I would take in shows until they started getting a little bit too expensive, or till they either were too expensive or I just didn't want to see them, But no, originally it was a great festival. I enjoyed the festivities of Park City, and
but you probably go to the 4th of July down in Utah County.
Oh, sure, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
All right, so I
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't be a good interviewer if I
Okay.
didn't know the stuff you've posted about the church.
Oh, well, yeah.
So
Okay.
you're the only human being
Mhm.
that I know that has been banned from every church facility, and because I see out on our church it says visitors welcome.
This is why I think Spencer Stokes is a LDS member. I didn't ask him about it, but he says outside our church there's a sign that says everyone's welcome, and they're talking about how George Zinn, an LDS member, is banned from all LDS property. So that's why I think Spencer has this connection to George, and why he has this kind of maybe a big brother kind of attitude. That's the vibe I got on the call with him, is that Spencer said George has nobody else. He's just no family, no real friends. I mean, he knew a lot of people, but there's really no one there to kind of look after him. So that's kind of the vibe I got of Spencer, was just kind of wants to look after George, and I think their faith is a connection that they have together. I should have asked him about it. Again, my bad.
Yeah.
So, but you've actually been banned.
Well, yeah, I'm on status right now, and I think the thing that they want to see is they want to see some conformity, and I think what they were mainly concerned about was like you said, my coming and going, and my just going to places without any kind of conscience at all, and thinking that I had free reign to things that really concerned them.
So, what was the thing that pushed him over the edge?
Well, I think because I'd just gotten out the youth chorus, and I still had this attitude, because when you're in some kind of an organization like that, you kind of are able to get into places that other people can't, because you're in an organization that requires you to go there.
Right.
And so so I got released, I still had this attitude, well, I can come and go behind the organ, whatever, or I can go to these different places, and they were concerned about my,
Well, what year was that?
It would have been about the ban actually came in 1989, the official ban. So
You've been. How come I thought this ban just occurred?
Well, it's been on status for just because we haven't been able to get it rectified.
What does it mean on status?
Persona non grata. Yeah, it's gone through their attorneys and everything, through Curtin and McConkey, and so it's an official. They're serious about it when they have to go through their attorneys.
So just a regular ward building you can't go to?
Not right now, not until I get this thing resolved. That was mainly on my request, because when I went to the last hearing a few months ago, and the judge was going to give me this hand down the sentence, and I says, well, Your Honor, does that include local buildings? She says, do you have anything to do with going to local buildings? And I says, no. She says, well, okay, that includes the local buildings too. And so that put any ward and stake buildings on the list as well.
Was that just so you could get out of sacrament meeting and callings, or?
No,
it wasn't that reason?
It was a trigger situation that, that I respond sometimes not always correctly.
So they just wanted you off Temple Square.
Notice what he says there. I respond sometimes incorrectly. I would say everyone would probably agree that he responded incorrectly at the Charlie Kirk assassination. And that's what Spencer was talking about, is that George can sometimes get worked up. And just with all that hustle and bustle, he was just kind of overcome emotionally. He's probably a guy that's got some screws loose. So that's one angle. You guys can think what you want. The impression that Spencer had, though, is just that, George sometimes doesn't respond correctly. So if you think George Zinn was intentionally creating a diversion, I don't know. I wouldn't go that angle. I don't think he would. I mean, just listen to the guy talk. I mean, really listen to him talk and tell me if you think he's someone that would, if anything, maybe we could take an MK Ultra kind of angle to it. Maybe we could say he was, if you really want to go that far, we could say maybe he was brainwashed to do this. Maybe he was, but for him to intentionally do it, I don't get that vibe. I think he's just an odd guy, a little bit older, in bad health, and this event happened and it just triggered him. Or maybe he was brainwashed into being triggered like that. I don't know. I'm not saying that for sure, but that's just the angle that you could take. If you think he is involved in this conspiracy, that's the angle that you could take, would be that he was an MK Ultra asset. So that's my take on it. I don't know either way. You want my opinion? It's hard to say without talking to the guy, without seeing him, without asking him questions. It's really hard to say. I did talk to Spencer, and Spencer's impression is what I just told you. He's an older guy in failing health, and just was overcome with emotion when this event happened. So we'll continue.
To begin with, but then you took it the next step and said,
no, they're aware of me almost anywhere that I go, where there might be high profile people or things like where they think George is. I remember I was trying to, I think it was the Cal Rampton funeral, if you want to.
Okay,
I remember.
yeah.
And of course, I like to go to these things, right?
Right.
And as I was going in, and there were some general authorities that were there, and as soon as I approached the sidewalk, they presented this letter to me, and they says, the status, you're not supposed to be at these things. And I was quite surprised, because I says, well, obviously they were triggered or had some idea that I'd show up. Otherwise, why would they have this letter in their pocket?
Right.
So they were prepared.
But so his wasn't
yeah.
in a church building, though. Where was his funeral?
It might not have been his. I know it was a large funeral.
Did you go to Orrin Hatch's funeral?
I could not go to Orrin Hatch's. I did want to.
Did you go up to him laying in state at the Capitol?
I did. I went to that because that's not part of their...
right.
They don't have any jurisdiction there.
Right.
And I'm fine with the UHP people.
Right. They know who you are. I mean, all the people in politics know who you are.
Yeah.
So you probably get fist bumps from them.
Yeah, if I behave myself, sure.
Yeah. Well, like when have you?
Governor Cox tends to want to snub me. I don't know, but that's his issue.
When have you done? I've never known you not to behave yourself. So when have you ever not behaved yourself?
Well, I try to have some good decorum when I'm in places. I don't want to be like, I want to be a where's Waldo kind of guy.
Right. Right.
Where I'm just there, and and people don't have to be concerned about me, but. Because of because of my triggered reactions and my previous behavior, they're kind of on red alert with me, you see. So,
but I don't understand what your triggered reactions are. Just maybe speaking your mind to somebody?
Mainly, I think that they think I just might do something that might bring them... Their main concern is to protect the...
Gosh, I'd love to talk to George about all this. I mean, come on. Like, it's clearly something that this issue of his reactions is clearly something that's been going on for a while now. Very interesting.
Property and people over their jurisdiction, you see. And so, they want to make sure that nothing's wrong, that everything goes smooth. Although I think they've gone way out of hand sometimes in harassing me in places. I was coming out of an event in the Ogden Tabernacle about a year ago. It wasn't even a church-sponsored event, and it was a musical, some kind of a musical, non-denominational. I was coming out, and one of their guys comes out, George, you're not supposed to be here. I was totally surprised. I said, I didn't know this included the Ogden Tabernacle. And so I says, I was just here. I just wanted to enjoy the thing. Why are you harassing me? So apparently the radar goes pretty far,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's talking about LDS church people doing that. These aren't police at political events. He's talking about trying to go to a church event and church officials being like, hey, Georgie, get out of here.
Yeah.
So you're hopeful that you'll get it resolved. Maybe
whatever happens, I go day by day.
Maybe your appearance on this podcast will help it get resolved.
Well, I don't know. They run their own agenda. They do what they want.
Yeah, because you seem. I've never seen you in one of the situations they're talking about. So I've never seen you anything but a gentleman to any of the people that I've interacted with.
Well, you've only seen 10% of me. You need to see the other 90%.
And that's when you're crazy.
I went all the way to Vegas one time, Las Vegas, just to harass John Kerry's rally.
And what did you do?
Well, he'd been known to sling a couple of words around.
Yeah.
That aren't really proper for here, but he said something, and so I went to the rally just to harass him. I was probably one of the only ones that was up there, and I held up this sign that says John Blank and Kerry, and of course they says, oh, this is a rebel rouser, and they ushered me out.
They got you out of there quick.
They got me out. It was at a high school. So I went all the way to Las Vegas just to harass a politician.
Well, if the politicians were playing this right, they'd only have their rallies in LDS facilities, because then the church would take care of you.
Yeah,
they'd kick you out.
Yeah.
So there also was one famous incident where, I've seen you stand up for people on UTA. And in the process of standing up for people, you've gotten punched out yourself.
Oh, I got a black eye about a couple of weeks ago. It was my fault. I think I didn't even want to press charges. I just kept pressing it. And pretty soon he just got frustrated and gave me a little pop in the eye. I was quite proud of it. I took it as a nice little battle wound.
So somebody you were telling somebody something they didn't want to hear, and they just popped you in the eye.
I can't remember circumstances. He just ran out of the bus, and I says, well. Most people.
This would be nice to see a video version of this, because most communication is nonverbal. 7% is words, like something like 35-40% is tone. The rest is body language. I wish I could see George's body language here, because I think he's being untruthful when he says he doesn't remember the circumstances of what. It's a couple weeks. He got punched in the face 2 weeks ago. I think he remembers what happened. I think he remembers what he said. He probably just doesn't want to come on this podcast and paint himself in a bad light and say what he did. But that's just me guessing. Maybe he did legitimately forget. Maybe getting rocked in the dome, kind of unjogged his memory. I don't know. But I do, just for the record here, you want my opinion, I think he's being untruthful when he's saying, I don't remember what happened. The reason I point this out is if you want to listen to this podcast and see if you could maybe match George's tone with other things to see how it differs when he is being untruthful versus some of the other events that he talks about. So just going to point that out for you. I know I say that a lot, but
like that are going to repeat in their behavior, and they'll get caught. They'll get caught. So,
yeah. Then one time you actually got thrown in jail.
Which time?
You've multiple times you've been thrown in jail. But you've been in. So how many times you've been thrown in jail?
Oh, well,
more than you can count.
I don't know. They're gonna name him Wing after me pretty soon. So
it's a lot.
But who's your favorite right now? Currently, your favorite politician in Utah?
You.
Yeah, but
Spencer Stokes.
I don't hold elective office. Who's your favorite elected person?
You're still my buddy, though.
I am your buddy, and I love you. Yeah. So who's your?
You interview like Howard Stern. You remind me of Howard Stern interviews.
That's comical, because somebody just called me that today.
Yeah.
And I don't think I don't bear any resemblance to Howard Stern.
No, but you have his interview style.
Okay, all right.
I shouldn't listen to him because he's nasty.
I want to point this out too. That's an interesting thing for a grown man to say. I shouldn't listen to him because he's nasty. And I wonder if this kind of ties into some of the, he hasn't had a girlfriend. He was married to that crazy cat lady for a bit, but his love life, his life with women has not been great. And then he makes that comment, I shouldn't listen to Howard Stern because he's nasty. To me, that's an odd thing for a grown man to say, and it maybe just kind of speaks. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not an expert in this, but it may be just his thought processes on things aren't like everyone else's. That's the only reason I point that out.
I want to know who's your favorite elected official in Utah right now?
Well, I like the ones I'm close to. I like the ones in the House. Actually, you'd be surprised at my answer, I think.
Okay, I want to hear it.
Brian King, my rep.
Your rep? No kidding.
Brian's nice to me. He's Democrat, but he listens. He returns my calls. And I have every respect for Brian. We've had lunch together. So
I like Brian King as well.
Brian's
doesn't
a good
surprise
guy.
me.
Just got married.
Down to earth, and he's your representative.
Yeah, I live in a Democratic.
Right.
So in my interview with Spencer, Spencer actually, I guess this is post this podcast here, there was actually an incident where George Zinn went to Brian King's office, and Brian King was back in his office. His secretary said he can't come out right now, and so George started, I don't want to say harassing, but just started talking to the secretary, who felt uncomfortable. I guess that's kind of I don't know the circumstances of it, but that's kind of a new thing, is if a woman doesn't want to talk to a guy who's trying to talk to him, they say they feel uncomfortable. So she didn't appreciate George. I don't know. Maybe I don't think he was probably flirting with her. He's probably, because he said women have taken a second seat. He's not interested. But George was probably just extra chatty with this lady. And Brian King, that congressman, actually called George and chewed his ass. I don't know if Spencer used those exact words, but it pissed George off. And Brian King went somewhere, and George Zinn, this is pre the No Kings protest, George made a sign that said "No King in the Democratic Party" or something, and was a one-man protest against Brian King. So interesting post Stokes and Folks podcast revelation there about the George Zinn Brian King relationship, for those that are interested.
How about federal office holder? Who's your favorite federal office holder?
And that's another one. I loved Gabby Gifford, because I remember what she went through in Arizona.
Okay.
She's just a dynamic woman. I had my picture taken with her Mark Kelly, at the Rose Bowl parade.
Gabby Giffords was the congresswoman that was shot a while back.
Really?
Because they were grand marshals. And I said, I've never met Gabby and Mark Kelly. I thought he's a great man, although he's on the liberal side. But
so you've been
but he loves people.
You've been to an Olympics.
I've been to 2 or 3.
You've been to the Rose Bowl parade.
Both of them.
Okay. Oh, the University of Utah ones. Is that what you're saying?
Both of them in a row. Yeah.
Okay. And
this year I thought I'd be kicking up my feet in my underwear, sitting at home watching it.
But you decided to go.
Yeah, but instead Utah got there and it changed my whole plans. So
interesting. Have you met the president of the University of Utah, the new one?
Oh, of course, Taylor knows me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's a dynamic, charismatic guy.
He is.
I think he's amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been to Rose Bowl. You've been to the Tabernacle Choir Tour. You've been to national conventions.
Yeah.
You've been to inaugurations. I know that.
I've been to 2, I think. 2 or 3. I think both of them were. No, I've been to 3. One was Reagan, where the Tabernacle Choir came through on a float.
Right. Okay.
And the other 2 were the George Bush 44.
Okay.
Not 41, 44.
44.
And the second one was horrible because there was almost as many protesters as there were. It was horrible. It was just, Washington, D.C. was just ambushed with haters. And the president wouldn't get out of his car. I thought, well, the usual parade where they get out. So I said, I went all the way to Washington, D.C. I couldn't even see the president. He just kind of raced through.
You've been to the funeral of a president.
Yeah. They didn't get in,
but you were there.
Yeah,
you were there. Jimmy Carter, are you going to go down to his funeral?
Probably not. I've been to his library. Okay. I just got back from the Reagan Library in Simi Valley.
How many libraries have you been to?
About 6. Okay. I've been to the George Bush at SMU.
Right.
John Kennedy in Boston.
Okay.
Jimmy Carter's.
Okay.
And Reagan. Maybe I want to go to Nixon's, but I haven't done that.
I want you to tell me your best story. What's your
story?
Yeah? What's the best story when people ask you, George? What's your best
you're not
story?
Preparing me for this. I just
well, I know you've got one on the tip of your tongue.
When he says you're not preparing me for this, I almost want to, and I should have asked Spencer about this again. I wonder if George had these questions pre pre-given to him so he could look at the questions he was going to get asked and come up with his answers. That might be why he makes that comment. Just want to point that out.
I mean, we've heard a bunch of great ones here. By the way, did you call Marty Stevens when you got kicked out of the church?
We've talked. And
I mean, he's your buddy. So
we've talked. He was at my he appeared at the 50 reunion last year at Ben Lomond. So it was nice.
He hasn't put in a good word with you, the church security.
It's hard to
yet.
get in touch with him. He's just so busy. Although when I get a chance, we can talk. Marty has no problems with me. He's known me since
high school.
Since I was in Pampers.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, I was just kind of giving you that to find out if you could think about your best story
I could think of one right offhand if you want.
Yeah,
one.
I want it.
I told you I was a crazy Denver Broncos guy, and this was a game in Denver, and at the end you got all the little kids and the fans wanting lined up and get autographs, stuff like that. Well, I don't want to avoid this crowd, so I take a separate way down through a tunnel, and I end up where the players are. And here I am bumping into my heroes, McCaffrey and Jason Elam and all these people that I just admire. And I had my picture taken with Jason Elam. He's the place kicker.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I says, boy, I just better watch because security's going to find out. They're going to throw me out of here. But I goes, I'm like a kid in a candy store, running around. I'm in the tunnel with the players,
But you have the ability. I've noticed you have the ability to get in those places a lot.
Yeah, well, now I'm doing it by protocol. Okay, now I'm trying to do it the right way. If I'm invited, I'll go. I won't try to do anything.
Worm your way in.
Well, yeah, I used to think, that was my privilege that I could do something like that. But it's gotten me a reputation, so.
Well, I don't know anybody at the national conventions. I've been to a bunch of them, and pretty much everybody is like, we got to figure out how to get George Zinn into the convention.
Just elect me as a delegate.
Well, there's your plug.
There's a plug. Yeah.
There's your plug.
I'm running as alternate this year. So
in next year, you're running as alternate in the second district,
which could very well end up in Salt Lake.
And he actually got there. He was an alternate delegate. Very interesting.
By the way, we might be on the short list again.
No kidding.
I don't know. Carson Jorgensen's not the chairman, so it depends on our national chairman, and I don't think he knows too much about Utah. Now with what's her
Ronna Daniels.
Ronna, which we might have had a better chance.
Right.
But I think this guy here, maybe not. But I think if Ronna McDaniel, we could have probably we might have had a chance getting the national convention here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, George, this has been a treat.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you did it. And I know that this is going to be the most listened to podcast that I've ever done because there's going to be so many.
Oh, how right you are, Spencer.
People that want to hear about George Zinn.
Yeah.
But now, George, just a couple of last questions.
Okay.
We know you've said you're not one of the three Nephites.
Well, they haven't told me. Maybe maybe the Lord surprises me.
Yeah, I had no idea you were born in Greece. So there's.
Well, I'll stand in front of a train and see if I'm one of the three Nephites.
Don't do that.
Oh, okay.
Don't do that. But how old of a guy are you?
I'll be 69 in 2 weeks.
Nice.
Okay, so you're retired.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you call it retired. I'm just. Yeah. I'm not working. Yeah.
Well, that's because you've put all the candy shops and sugar shops out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll be 69 what day?
April 3rd.
April 3rd is your birthday. So
that I know of. We don't really have any record of it, but we decided April 3rd pretty close.
Is the date of birth. How did you get from Greece as a baby to New York City?
From what I understand, what my mom had told me is that a caretaker had brought me as far as my mom didn't go to Greece. She went to New York.
She went to
New York, and I was officially hers before she even touched me.
Have you taken the 23andMe or the DNA testing?
I should, because we don't have any record. We don't really.
Okay, we're doing that. I'm going to personally pay for you to get that done.
I think that I'm mixed. Okay, I think I'm kind of a product of something during the Korean War. I think back then they would rather put babies in adoption than have other alternatives, and so I think I was lucky. I was actually adopted from a nursery. in Athens. And my mom said when she brought me home to Ogden, she says, "What, George, you'd keep clawing to climb out of your crib, sleep on the floor." And she says, when you had something to eat, you'd hold your bread next to your chest, like, "Don't take my food away." You were going hungry.
That's an interesting revelation there by George right here in the last few minutes of the podcast. You know, there's some evidence in psychology that the infant stages of human development, you know, if you don't have good relationships with your mother and your father, or if you go through some sort of trauma at various stages, it creates psychological issues as you get older. Again, not a psychologist or whatever, but that could be one reason why George is kind of an interesting fella. Is, you know, he says when he's a baby, given up for adoption. You know, these old, especially a 1950s adoption center in Athens, Greece, they probably didn't rock the babies, cuddle them, burp them, give them skin to skin. I mean, anyone that's had an infant, you read 2 or 3 books, or at least the mom does, on what you need to do with the baby. George probably didn't have a lot of affection, I would imagine, until he got to Salt Lake City at 1.5 years, and you know, he was, you know, sleeping on the floor. He was scared people were going to take his food. You know, a little 1.5 year old, you know, baby toddler. So interesting there. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, so she said, you know, you were obviously not treated very well there. You know, when they picked me up, my passport, I don't have my passport. When they picked me up, my passport showed me in a little dress. Now that's not peculiar in Athens to put a little boy in a dress.
I don't know what that means, but I guess it's not peculiar. But I'm just thinking the same thing you are. Like, what, a dress?
Right.
But my passport shows me as a little boy in a little girl's dress.
Okay, well, we're going to do this. We're going to do this.
No, you're not going to put me in a dress.
No, not put you in a dress. We know we can't do that. We know we'd have to. The legislature would have to have a disclaimer.
Yeah.
If you were so. But we're going to we're going to get I think it's either Ancestry or 23andMe, and we're going to find out who you're connected to.
I'd like to, because that'd be fine, because we have the name of my mother, who was Keonis, Georgia Keonis in Greek.
Okay.
Which Georgios Keonis or something like that. And Keonis translates to snow. So my name would have been Snow.
Okay.
Her name was Georgia Snow.
So is that where you got George? Was George?
Yeah, I was officially George when I came over here. They didn't change that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that may be on another episode.
Spencer never does the 23andMe. He told me that on the call, that he had never gotten around to it, but if things calm down with George, he might eventually.
Of Stokes and Folks, but hey, thanks, George, for coming in. I know we've been working on this for a few months, so I'm glad we pulled it off.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me.
This has been another episode of Stokes and Folks. I'd like to thank our studio audience, Deacon Temples, Ben Howard, Tyler Cannon, and our producer, Connor Sorensen. Once again, join us next week for another edition of Stokes and Folks.
All right, guys, let me know what you thought about George Zinn. Tell me if your perspectives on him have changed a little bit. I'll throw up my interview with Spencer right here. It's just a phone interview. If you want to watch that, I highly recommend it. It goes great with this podcast episode because Spencer provides so much context into George Zinn and his perspectives on him. Spencer, by his own words, is one of the people who's closest to George. So highly recommend listening to that. Let me know what you think about George down in the comments, and we will see you on the next one.